thank you everyone for joining us on day 2 of Build. You've made it to vibe coding with the Mapbox DevKit MCP Server. And our speakers today are Jussi Salminen, who's a software engineer, and Ian Ward, also a software engineer, both working on our new MCP Server and Location AI products. This is one of the newer offerings to support the experience of developing with Mapbox. So excited to learn more from our presenters today. Before we get started, just a few quick reminders for everyone. So all of the build sessions are recorded and will be available to view after the event. On the next slide, there's just a little diagram if you're looking for the Zoom Q&A feature. It is down at the bottom of your screen. Also, if you would like to have captions on or translations automatically, you can enable those at the bottom of your Zoom window. Also, we will have some time for Q&A at the end. We request that you put your questions for the speakers into the Q&A box. That helps us to keep track of the questions. You can submit those at any time during the presentation. We'll be watching chat as well, but just know that we might miss your question if you put it in the chat. And then if you want to rewatch this recording, you'll find it in the Zoom event lobby. And you can also discover all the other build sessions available throughout the week in the Zoom event lobby or at mapbox.com/build. All right, so that's it from me. Without further ado, I'll welcome our first presenter, Ian, to the virtual stage.
Hey, Marina. Thank you. And hey, everyone. Welcome to our session today, Vibe Coding with the Mapbox DevKit MCP Server. My name is Ian Ward, and I'm a software engineer at Mapbox, and I've been at Mapbox since the beginning, from the founding team, working on our core platform, and then in security, and then several years on search, and most recently on the location AI team. And I'm joined today by Jussi Salminen. Jussi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I am Jussi Salminen, and I joined Mapbox 3 months ago as part of the location AI team, and I'm focusing on working on the MCP servers and the location agent.
Great. So yeah, as Jussi mentioned, we're both on the location AI team, and as part of that, we've been working on a couple of our MCP servers, and one of which we're going to talk about mainly today, the DevKit server. So yeah, just to start off with, I wanted to give everyone an idea of our agenda for this session. We're going to do a brief introduction about the model context protocol to make sure everyone has a background on that, and we're all on the same page there. And then a little bit of about coding agents, because we're going to be using a coding agent in the vibe coding portion of the session today. And then, yeah, after coding agents, we'll talk about what's in the Mapbox DevKit server and some details about how we built it. Then we'll get into that live vibe coding demo that Jussi is going to do. And after that, we'll talk about how to get it, how to install it and configure it properly. And then roadmap ideas, some things that we're thinking about for the roadmap. And again, if you have any questions that you think about along the way, we'll try to answer those as well at the end. Okay, so first off, a quick introduction about the model context protocol. If you look at this diagram here on the left, you see the different AI applications such as Claude Code, VS Code, like different IDEs, Claude Desktop, maybe a custom application that you're developing or a custom AI pipeline that has an agent or LLM models in it. And on the other side are different external providers, APIs, files, system storage, etc. Maybe those are provided by Mapbox, Stripe, AWS, other cloud storage databases, and so on. And in the middle here is the model context protocol. So it kind of is an open standard that standardizes the way that these AI applications of different kinds can connect more easily with external data sources and APIs. And if you look at kind of before the model context protocol existed, if you were using or developing an AI application and you wanted to integrate with different third-party APIs and other service providers, you'd have to write custom integration code for each one. And not only that, but if you then wanted to do that on another AI application that you're building, you'd have to port that integration code every single time. It's pretty repetitive and wasteful and kind of over time hard to maintain. And so, yeah, if we look at this diagram here, the model context protocol kind of acts as an abstraction layer between the AI application and the different service providers like Mapbox APIs. The MCP server here, you see, this is actually our other MCP server in this diagram, which is kind of a mapping one-to-one around the different public APIs that Mapbox offers, like geocoding, directions, matrix. And in this example, the AI application is able to, instead of talking directly to the different APIs, it's able to just enable or turn on an MCP server and talk to that MCP server, which then kind of proxies back to the different APIs or other services that it accesses. And yeah, the MCP server here, often this will be provided by a third party like Mapbox. So in the case of Mapbox's APIs, this MCP server is now something that Mapbox can manage and further develop, and you just have to enable it within your application. So yeah, there's a lot more to the model context protocol spec, like resources and prompts, but for the sake of this presentation, I just want to touch on tools because that's mainly what we're talking about here. And yeah, just diving on another level deeper here. So if you have an MCP server that has tools, that MCP server using the model context protocol will create this tool/list endpoint. And an AI application is able to query that endpoint and get a list of all the tools that MCP server provides. So in this case, on the right, this is actually an example of what the Mapbox DevKit MCP server might return. You'll see that there's a name in this tools array for each tool. And in this case, there's the list styles tool. And then there's a title and a description. And that description is what is used by the MCP server to explain what that tool can do so that the AI application, the LLM, and agent can read that description and understand when it should call it. And not just that, but also you'll see there's this input schema object and then there are properties object. And in there's a limit. So this is a way that when the AI application is calling and using this tool, it also knows what types of parameters or arguments, for example, it can send. In this case, it can send a limit so that when this tool lists Mapbox styles in your account, you can limit it to, say, 10. So only 10 styles will be listed, for example. So yeah, this kind of explains how the MCP server is able to describe what it can do to the AI application. And now, yeah, if you look on the right here, the AI application is able to use the model context protocol to then talk to these different MCP servers. You just need to enable those MCP servers in your AI application that you're either using or that you're building. And it greatly simplifies that process of integrating those different third-party providers compared to what we have had before on the left. Yeah, again, there's a lot more to the spec, so I just wanted to cover some basic concepts that will be important for this presentation. And one other point I wanted to cover is that Mapbox has two different MCP servers. We have the main MCP server, which you can see the GitHub link for at /mcp-server. And that is our MCP server that is used to access the different public Mapbox APIs like the directions API, the search box API, geocoding API, isochrone matrix, and so on. So yeah, that maps kind of more one-to-one with our different public APIs that we offer. And then what we'll be talking about in detail here today is the DevKit server. And this is more so to help developers who are trying to build an application that maybe uses a Mapbox map in that application to help with different workflow problems and speeding up that workflow of developing that application. And we'll show you in more detail soon how that works. So one more concept I wanted to cover is the idea of a coding agent. So you may have heard of Claude Code or Codex from OpenAI. And the idea is here is that you can run this in the command line. You start it up in a directory, and say that directory has a repository of code in it. Maybe there's a bug that you've seen in that code, and there's an error message, and you could just say on the command line in a prompt, hey, I see this bug happening. There's this particular error message that I'm hitting. Can you figure out how to fix it? And in this case, Claude Code or the coding agent would start to read the code in that directory. It may start to write some code, change code that exists, write some tests or run existing tests and so on, kind of iteratively and in a loop, try to figure out what that problem is and fix it. And it can do the same. So the same if you didn't have any code at all. So if you just had an empty directory, you could give it a prompt like, make a new website that features a Mapbox map and a list of top cities in the sidebar. And when you click on a city, it moves the Mapbox map center point to that city. So in this case, the coding agent could go and start to write that whole project from scratch. And a key thing here is that this is exactly where you could turn on the Mapbox DevKit server, because what it does is it gives this coding agent extra capabilities that help enhance this experience of if you're trying to develop an application that where you're going to use a Mapbox map that has a bunch of things to help speed up that workflow. So if you think about some of the things that you have to do when you're developing an application that has a Mapbox map in it, maybe you don't have a style yet for that application, for the map, a map style. So you want to maybe create a new style. And then after doing that, perhaps you don't have an access token, or you want to create a new Mapbox access token that you'll use specifically for that project. That's another thing you'd have to go and do in the Mapbox console. And then perhaps you're developing this map for a specific application, and that application has certain themes and color schemes in it. So you may want to start to iterate on the colors of that map so that they better match your application and the background and other aspects of the design of that application. And then as you do that, you're gonna want to maybe compare like the new style to the previous style, and do that several times as you make different changes to aspects of that style. And another thing, maybe you want to focus the map on certain areas of the world when things are clicked. So if you click on a particular country in that application, maybe you want to have the map go to a particular bounding box around that country. And now you need to figure out, okay, what is the exact bounding box for that country and so on. And then also a common thing maybe that you have GeoJSON data that you're working with, and you want to quickly visualize that GeoJSON data, check it out, make sure it looks like what you expect, and see what other properties in it look like visually. So yeah, these are just several different things in the workflow of developing an application that uses a Mapbox map, where the Mapbox DevKit MCP server can help speed up. So I'm gonna pass it now to Jussi, who is going to start talking about the details of how the DevKit server helps.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I sent the request to share. Okay, so here we go. That should be visible to everyone right now. Yeah, so I'd like to talk about what's in the DevKit MCP server. So it provides a set of tools which interact with the Mapbox developer APIs using natural language prompts, as well as local processing tools. So first of all, we have token tools which allow you to manage Mapbox public tokens with scopes related to reading styles, fonts, datasets, and vision. And I'd like to note that secret scopes are not supported for security reasons, since we don't want to expose secret tokens from a tool called an LLM. And then we have style management tools. So you have full control over Mapbox styles. You can create, update, retrieve, and delete them with natural language. And then with the style helper, you can create styles step by step, while the preview URLs and side-by-side comparison can help you to test and showcase your styles. Yeah, so moving on here. So that we have tile query tool. You can use this to query data at any point on a Mapbox map with the provided coordinates. So you would use this to find features like buildings, roads, and land use information. And then for local processing tools, we have GeoJSON tools. So you would use this for calculating bounding boxes from any geometry, take predefined country bounds using country codes, and generate GeoJSON preview URLs instantly so that you can visualize it in your browser. And then finally, we have coordinate tools to convert between WGS84, also known as GPS coordinates, and Web Mercator, which Mapbox is using for displaying maps on the web. So this handles the translation between real-world GPS coordinates and the flat map tiles you see in browsers. And then moving on to how we build it and the technical details. So we built the DevKit MCP server with TypeScript for type safety and developer experience. And then at the same time, the MCP SDK from Anthropic handles all the protocol communication and the tool registration. So that means we can fully focus on implementing what's most important, tools that help you boost your development with Mapbox products. And for separation of concerns, we have a tool hierarchy implemented. So every tool inherits from a base tool, which handles input validation and error handling and logging. And then we have a specialized Mapbox API-based tool. And this handles JWT token validation and extracts username from the token for API calls. And then some words about the developer experience. We have plot templates. These are for scaffolding new tools with the boilerplate code, tests, and proper structure already in place so that you can focus on the logic. And finally, we have ZOD schemas, which provide runtime validation and TypeScript type inference in one go so that every input is validated before execution. Okay, so I'd like to show an actual part of the tool code here. So let's look at the token creation tool code. I'll stop the slides here for a second and share again so that we have the full window. Okay, so desktop 1. Okay, so I'm here on GitHub on MCP DevKit server. This is public to everyone. You should be able to see this one. And we have source tools directory here. Each tool has its own directory like this. And as we are looking at the token creation tool, it inherits from the Mapbox API-based tool. So let's look at that first. So here we are defining the Mapbox access token and the endpoint as properties, as these are needed for calling the endpoint. And then we have a utility function here to extract the username from a token. We will need that for some URLs. And moving on here, we have a function to check that the JWT is in valid format. So what this does is just check that it consists of 3 parts and every part is non-empty here. And then there is a run function, which is the most important part. It validates the token and runs the tool logic. As input, it takes basically the input object, which in this case is the create tokens. We will see that later there. And yes, so then we check that the access token we have that defined, it's valid, and then we call the implementing class run function here with the input. If an error occurred, then we will handle that, of course. So yeah, let's jump into the create token tool directory here. Each tool directory we have like a schema and the test file and the implementation itself. So if we look at the schema here first, here are the scopes which I talked about earlier. And then there is the create token schema, which is a ZOD object. So Here we define all the properties which this object takes as input. And then first of all, we have node, which is a string object, and we have a description for it, description of the token. It's important to note that this description here, we are basically telling the LLM what's the purpose of this property. So very important to have this in the right way. This is how we have this here. And then the scopes, which are basically just, it could be any values of the scopes here. And then array of allowed URLs, which is basically if we want to restrict the public token to be used in specific URL at maximum 100 here. And then expires. So if the token has an expiry time, maximum 1 hour in the future, we could do that. So yeah, this is basically the tool schema. If I go to the tool logic itself, here we can see that there are properties such as the create token tool in snake case by the MCP standard way of naming the tools. And then there is a description, which is basically, again, describing to the LLM the purpose of this tool. And then getting to the most important part here, the execute function. So there is create token input, which is basically now the payload based on the schema we saw earlier. And inside the logic, we get the username from the token. We saw that in Mapbox API-based tool. And then we construct the URL and then basically the payload as well. Then we are going to call the endpoint of create tokens in API mapbox.com, and we handle the response. If everything went well, we are returning this text object and the response here. Great. So now that we have seen some of the code as well, I'd like to jump into live coding part. So I have here Claude Code, and it has been configured with the DevKit MCP Server. So I will start by creating something, a style, a Halloween themed style. So let's say create a Halloween themed style. So as we can see here, it's calling a style helper tool, and it's calling our theme Halloween night, style Halloween night.
You see one question. Do you have any existing code in this directory?
Yes, I have an HTML file here, which contains a Mapbox JL.js map. And we are going to apply one of these styles into this map, basically. Yeah. Okay, so this was created. Let's ask Claude to preview this style. Right, it has to create the style first. It has to call the create style tool, and then it will call the preview. So yeah, so here we can see in order, create style tool, preview style tool. Okay, it has been created. So let's ask Claude as well to open this link for us. Okay, now let's see what happens here. So we should have style preview with the Halloween theme. So we can see that labels are orange, water is kind of dark as well, and it's the ground a bit purple as well. Great. Now I'm thinking about creating something else.
Yeah, I've got an idea here. I know that a lot of people trick or treat during the day as well. So could we create a daytime theme for this style?
That's a great idea. Let's say create a Halloween day style. So let's see what Claude comes up with this prompt here. Calling the style helper tool again. And then we on here. Now it knows to call the create style tool as well, and then it previews as well. Okay, let's open this link as well as it was created. So we have a Halloween daytime theme, which is slightly more bright than the previous one. Nice. So if we want a side-by-side comparison of this, so compare these styles. So if we ask Claude to compare these styles, it's actually first going to fetch a public token for us, since we need that for the style comparison tool. So yeah, style comparison tool is called, and then open this link as well. Okay, so here is like a side-by-side comparison. On the left, we have, as described here, Halloween night. On the right, Halloween day. So this is a tool that can be used for any of your Mapbox styles. Just with the prompt, you get this view for comparing styles. Great. So, okay, so we have just created two styles with quite simple prompts. What if we wanted something more, more control than just saying Halloween or Halloween day? So I'm going to say, help me create a style here. And it's calling the style helper tool again, but now we need to name our style as it's asking. So I'm going to call that navmap. Let's imagine this is going to be a map for navigation. And then the next question from this tool is what kind of features we want to include there. So places, roads, POIs, buildings, parks, and transit. So since we are working on navigation, let's say all of them. Okay. Great. And then it's setting all these flags to true here. And then colors. So there are options here. We could say something like classic navigation, dark mode, high contrast, custom, or we could define these ourselves. So what I'm going to do here is something experimental. So I'm going to find Mapbox website here, and then let's get back here and tell Claude, get the colors from the CSS of mapbox.com and apply them. Okay, so now Claude is going to, first of all, fetch mapbox.com, and then it should be applying the colors it finds in the CSS of Mapbox.com to this style. Okay, so it found some colors and it's calling the style helper here. Okay, and let's preview it as well. We want to see what happened, right? And yeah, it has to create it first and then preview it. Sometimes it calls the create right away. Sometimes it goes straight to the preview. Okay. Actually, now that I mentioned before, let's open this link first to see what has been created. Okay, so this is the style it came up with, and we can see that, the C is blue, labels are black, and there is some white. So it took some colors of Mapbox website. Great. So moving on here to the HTML page I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to tell Claude I have an HTML map file in this directory. apply this style to that map. And let's see. Okay, so it found this one file here. And also it's setting the access token since we need an access token. So it's already setting that too. So that's great. I was going to create a public token for us, but seems that it's already done that. So let's see here. I have the map file here. So great. This is the map file in the same directory here. Now let's test another tool here. So the bounding box tool for countries. So get the bounding box of Ireland and apply it to this and restrict to this area. So we are getting the bounding box of Ireland using the country bounding box tool. And then we will update the area of the map so that we can only, we can't go anywhere outside Ireland in that map. Okay, so it has been updated. Let's refresh here. Okay, it's kind of Ireland, but we can't scroll everywhere. There are still parts of Ireland here that we can't see everything. So double the bounding box. It is too restrictive. Okay. Okay, so we have double the bounding box. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, now we can see it entirely and Northern Ireland as well. Nice. Okay, so okay, that was this kind of set of tools. And now I'd like to show you, there is one more tool that I'd like to show here. So I have a GeoJSON file in this directory. It contains earthquake data from the previous week from USGS. So let's try to preview this using the GeoJSON preview tool. So I have a GeoJSON file in there. So the prompt is, yeah, I have a GeoJSON file in the current directory. Can you preview? Okay. Found it, and then creating the preview here. Okay, so calling the tool here, GeoJSON preview tool with all the content of that JSON here. Well, we already have the kind of the tool response here, so I'm just going to copy it from here, and let's get here. Okay, I think I will wait for the Claude to respond since that didn't work out. Yeah, still working here. Okay, open this link. So we have a response here. It's a long URL since it contains basically all of this GeoJSON here. So there is kind of a limitation there how large this file can be. That's why we have 5 recent earthquake data here. So waiting for, okay, nice, it worked out. So we have 5 earthquakes here, 2 in California, and then I think there are 2 next to each other in Hawaii here. If I click in here, we can see the magnitude and all kinds of features data here and the full GeoJSON here. So it's a very handy tool for visualizing GeoJSON. Yeah. Okay, and this is the end of the live demo part. I will pass it now to Ian, and Ian will talk about how to install and get the DevKit MCP.
Great. Thank you, Jussi. I hope that, yeah, that was really great. I hope that helps show some of the power of the DevKit MCP server. So yeah, I wanted to just cover a little bit about how to install the DevKit MCP server. And mainly I wanted to point out that if you go to the GitHub repository here in the Mapbox GitHub account, it's just /Mapbox/MCP-DevKit-server. We have detailed installation instructions there for how you can install it in applications like Claude Code and a couple of other IDEs. And it's also possible to install it on clients like OpenAI Codex coding agent. I would encourage everyone to just always refer to these instructions there, as we'll keep them updated if anything ever changes. But we also wanted to share, we are excited to announce that we've, in the last few days, released the hosted version of this Mapbox DevKit server. So that is a version that is hosted by Mapbox that hopefully makes it easier to get up and running. You can install it in just 2 steps. So once you have the application that you want to use it in, for example, Claude Code. So if you've installed Claude Code, from the command line, you can just run Claude MCP add -- transport HTTP Mapbox -devkit, and then that URL is the URL of our hosted DevKit server, and then --env Mapbox access token equals, and then your Mapbox access token. And there's a few details I'll cover on the next slide about some scopes that you need that access token to have in order for it to work properly. And then once you run that command, you start Claude Code, and you can run /MCP, follow the dialog there to authenticate, and you should be good to go. But again, yeah, I encourage everyone to check out our repository and GitHub for this DevKit MCP server with all the latest instructions. And just about the scope, so I mentioned in that previous slide that the access token that you use when you're configuring the DevKit server, that needs to have some private scopes because, as you could see in the demo, it's able to create access tokens, it's able to create styles, update and delete styles. In order to do those things, it needs to have these particular scopes that you see here. This is also documented in the installation instructions on the GitHub repository, and those could change over time if we add or change any tools in it. So again, best place to look is in the install instructions on the README of the GitHub repository. So yeah, that I want to pass it back to Jussi to cover some of the things that we're thinking about for the roadmap.
Thanks, Ian. So yeah, nice one. So finally, I'd like to talk about the roadmap of features implemented in the coming months and in the future. So for the style helper tool, we are currently working on improvements so that it fully supports all layer types, such as waterways, railroads, boundaries, and in general, the Mapbox standard style, which contains a lot more than what you just saw in the vibe coding part. And then we are also implementing a solution to guide the LLM to better understand the Mapbox style specification so that it can help suggest appropriate style choices based on the purpose of the map. And then for the Mapbox styling service as a tool, we are looking to support that as well so that you can upload your own geographic data and convert it to optimized tile sets. And so you could provide a GeoJSON file, configure tile set recipes, and generate map tiles from a prompt. And then for documentation tools, which help you quickly locate the right Mapbox documentation with the prompt. So imagine if you were to ask Claude or any coding agent, how do I add 3D buildings to my style? So you would find this exact documentation quickly and that will make your learning curve smoother. And finally, integration with the Mapbox developer playground. This will provide direct links with interactive examples where users can experiment with the APIs of Mapbox, such as directions, search box, geocoding, and static images. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's one. So, yeah, lastly, I'd like to talk about in terms of feedback. The question is, how can we make your Mapbox development workflow better? This is what we want to achieve with this MCP server. So what kind of tools, features, and use case would help you? That is the question. So feel free to reach out after the talk or open an issue on GitHub. You see the link there on the slide. And finally, thanks everyone for your time today, and I hope these tools will be useful for making your workflow more efficient.
Thank you, everyone.
That's great. Did we want to take some time for questions, Ian and Jussi?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we had a couple questions come in the chat. Also, folks, if you want to submit more in the Q&A, looks like we've got a couple sitting there. One of the first questions in the chat was curious about how much it costs to use Claude Code.
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of all depends. There's a few things that kind of influence that. It depends maybe kind of what model you're using. So you can use Claude Code with different models that Anthropic provides. Sonnet, I believe, is cheaper than Opus. Also, kind of depends on what you're doing. So if you're having Claude Code like analyze a whole code base and it has to read a bunch of code in order to like understand the context of what it needs to do. And then like also if you need to have it run a bunch of code, there's like input tokens is one cost and then output tokens is another cost. I believe output is more expensive. So if it's writing a bunch of code, that's where you could have like more output tokens. And anything that it's outputting really can lead to more output tokens. So there's a lot that can kind of make it vary. I think there's like, I don't know too much about the different Claude Code plans. I think maybe there's like a free limit, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. But yeah, there may be like different plan levels as well that get you access to varying amounts of API and token usage. But yeah, for what Jussi was doing in that vibe coding, let's see, for like creating a style, it's I would say it's not writing a ton of output tokens. It's having to like output that style. Yeah, it can be pretty variable and short depending on what you're doing. Jussi, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of the plans that Claude is offering since we have the organization plan. Yeah, I don't want to say anything at this point.
Okay.
Now.
No worries. Yeah, there's a comment in the chat as well from Valentin offering some other suggestions for folks who are looking for coding tools. Another question we have here, is there an advantage to using the hosted DevKit MCP server versus the non-hosted option?
Yes, so both of them have pros and cons. So like the hosted MCP, it comes pre-configured so that it has access to Mapbox APIs. Like you don't need to set it up locally with your access token. So you just add it and you get to an OAuth dialog, and then there you have it. And then regarding the local setup, that requires a bit more, as in you would have to create the access token with the secret scopes manually. but then again, it offers more control in case you want to extend or customize the MCP yourself. So yeah, the simple solution is to go with the hosted one. But then for more control, customization, debugging, it's better to go with the local one.
Thanks, Jussi. We have a couple different related questions about the map styling logic. So just kind of combining them together. The general theme is like how does it know how to make these different color styling decisions? That seems very complicated. Is it somehow trained on a collection of existing styles or cartographic or design principles for things like favoring dark colors for labels if the land is light? How can you, anything more you can share about how it does that styling so fast?
Yeah, so for this Halloween theme and the way that we believe Claude is working, the model is trained and it knows something before. So when we say create this Halloween style for us, it knows the payload structure and it's just going to apply something that it has been trained with the colors. So, but we saw that it's not very advanced at this point, what Claude models know at least, because, for example, we didn't see any country boundaries or waterways, railroads. So one of the things in the roadmap is that we are looking to improve this in the DevKit MCP so that we have full control of the details in the style.
Nice. There was a question in the chat as well, asking, is there a demo of the DevKit that can be used to explore the different functionality, or is really the only option to sort of start building with it? Is there access to any kind of demo?
I would say like there isn't any, depends on what's the definition of demo here, but like in the GitHub repository, we have like example prompts. And so that should already kind of describe the basic usage for each functionality. And yeah, we are looking to improve the documentation as well so that it will be easier to get started.
Great. All right, I think we've got time for just one more question. Just asking you both, do you have a favorite functionality of the DevKit MCP for enhancing your own development process?
Well, this style helper tool together with the side-by-side style comparison is something that they are the most recent features which I've been working on. So, and now with the future enhancements to the style helper tool, I think that would be my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, yeah, I don't do a ton of Mapbox map styling or design work, but I did find it quite interesting, like how there's maybe some potential to speed up the iteration process on changing a style, like creating it and then changing a style, and also just that idea of like if you have an application that you're developing and it already has an existing theme and you've worked on the CSS and maybe that's coming from branding that you're already working with, just the ability to say, hey, look at this, make it look like that. I think it's pretty interesting. So it'd be good to hear from people if they have more feedback, if there's like more control or ways you could control it in particular ways from coding agents to, to improve how you can style it that way. That would be great to hear.
That's a great segue again to what's on the screen here in terms of ways you can share feedback, request new features. I think the favorite feature might depend a little bit on your orientation to building with Mapbox. I love being in studio and spending lots of time styling. I'm less excited about formatting the GeoJSON or managing tokens. So and there's something for everyone, I guess, depending on what are the parts of the Mapbox development process you like to spend time on. But yeah, this is a fantastic session. Thank you both, Ian and Jussi. Thank you everyone for attending live. And we'll wrap up so folks can make it to the next session.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.